Welcome back. Now, on October 13th, 2023, UL journalism student Joe Drennan was tragically killed in a hit and run.
Last week, Joe's killer was sentenced to 6.5 years, but he will be serving his term concurrently with an 8-year sentence for an unrelated gun crime.
Joe's sister, Sarah Drennan, is here to share their family's fight for justice for Joe. And Sarah, thanks a million for coming into us this morning. I suppose for people who don't know Joe personally, don't know who he was, what was he like?
Well, Joe was just the most kind-hearted, courageous, hard-working young man that I've ever known. At just the age of 21, he was 21 2 weeks before he was killed. He had achieved so much in his life. He was studying college to be a journalist, and he was doing so well in that already. He was an advocate for people, and he was an advocate for LGBTQ plus rights, and he just wanted to give people a voice that isn't usually heard. He was so passionate about everything he pursued, and yeah, he was just an amazing boy. And beyond that, he just had a heart of gold. He's the person I turn to for everything, so.
Yeah, the baby brother, and of course he would have shared a lot with you, including what his hopes were for the future. What area of journalism did he want to get into, or what was he passionate about?
He was just so passionate about human rights and, giving people a voice that aren't usually heard, the marginalised communities, and his plans, he wanted to go to, we were going to move to Berlin together, and he had been in touch with European magazines that he could work for over there. He wanted to just go and enjoy his life, and he definitely was, because he was so passionate about everything he pursued, and he was such a hard worker, So.
Do you remember what your last conversations were like with him?
Yeah, so I talked to Joe earlier that day, and I said, I can't talk to you for long, but ring me when you're finished work. So he said, yeah, that's fine, I'll ring you after work. And obviously he didn't get to ring me after work. So when he had finished, I gave him a text to see what he was doing, because he hadn't answered. And obviously then the guards had came to the door telling me that, yeah, Joe had been killed in a road collision.
So for people who haven't been following the case and aren't familiar with it, what happened, Joe, that night?
So Joe was just finished work, he was earning his money for college, and he was waiting at a bus stop to bring him home. And a known criminal with 46 previous convictions, who's banned off the road, was driving at a speed of 122 kilometres per hour in a built-up city, and ran a red light and crashed into Joe and killed him. And he spent 14 seconds in the car wiping down his DNA, and he fled the scene, and he wasn't caught until, I think, 10 days after. And then the guards found him, and yeah, so.
I can't imagine what getting the news of that was like for you, getting that knock on the door.
Yeah, because I was alone at the house. My mum and dad had just went on holiday. My sister had moved to Sweden, and I was alone in the house, and the guards came, and they told me Joseph Drennan had been killed in a road collision, and I just thought, this isn't real. I was just talking to him. But I was brought then in the back of the Garda car to Limerick, where he was. And yeah, I remember talking to the nurses, they tried everything. Joe's injuries were just catastrophic, there was no saving him. And I remember giving my mum and my dad the phone call, and just the screams and the cries, it was awful. I had to ring my family members to tell them that they had to come home because, Joe had been killed. And it was just, it's something you never forget, you'll always think about that.
Yeah. And I suppose in the weeks and the months that came, you said it was 10 days before his killer was caught. The contrast between Fogarty and your brother couldn't have been more sharp.
Oh yeah, Joe never was involved in criminality in his life. He was an advocate for people. He gave people a voice that wasn't heard, and Fogarty was a known criminal. He had 46 previous charges. He was banned off the road. He was involved in drugs. He was involved in guns. It was complete contrast. And the judge had even acknowledged that. The judge had acknowledged the difference between Fogarty and Joe, and said Joe was making such a good impact in this world because he was. And it was just. Yeah, it was just the contrast between the two was awful,
Sitting through that trial as well, I mean, what was that like for you?
Yeah, the trial, it was awful, to be honest. It was an outrage what happened on Thursday, because the judge had stated all the differences, and he went on to sentence fogarty for what he did to my brother, which was 6.5 years. And then he moved on to a gun charge. And in the court, then the judge had said this would run consecutively, meaning he would get 14.5 years. But then it wasn't until the end, when our barrister had to clarify the charges, that the judge said, no, I meant to say concurrently, meaning he would only serve 8 years for a gun charge, because these two charges would run at the same time.
So even though he got 6.5 years for killing your brother, in real time he would serve none, because the sentences were run side by side, basically.
Exactly, yeah, because he was going to do the 8 years anyway for the gun charge, so he just put the 6.5 years along with it. You know, like he didn't. It was a complete injustice to my brother and his memory, and an injustice for the loss that we've suffered as well. You know, like, my brother never was involved in crime, and to put him alongside a gun charge that had happened 6 months prior and had nothing got to do with Joe was just such an injustice, you know.
It seems a really strange decision to even prosecute them together.
Yeah, like, it was, I don't know what the thoughts were about it, but, you know, like, we made an online petition now to change the law, and, like, we're calling on the Irish government and the Minister of Justice to change the sentencing laws to, like, make sure that, you know, multiple serious crimes, like, including, like, especially involving a loss of life, cannot be served concurrently. It has to be consecutive, you know, to ensure that, like, the victims and their families get the justice that they deserve, and holds criminals to real accountability, because, you know, in my brother's case, there was no accountability, you know.
I suppose if you look at it, the other crime he was sentenced for was treated as more serious than the crime of taking a life.
You know, like, like, he shot at a wall, like, and he shot at a wall, I know, where kids were playing, and this just shows the person he was. Like, he didn't care, he had no remorse about anything, you know. And my brother is dead, do you know what I mean? Like, my brother deserves that justice, you know. He didn't deserve to be put alongside with a gun charge. I had nothing got to do with him. And it was just a complete injustice to my brother and our family, and the loss that we've suffered. And yeah, it's just...
And you have to think of the wider victimhood here. It's, of course, your gorgeous brother was horribly killed, but it's like a bomb exploded in your family as well, because the grief you all must be feeling doesn't go away. No. Every single day you live with it. Do you think the justice system just doesn't give enough credence to that and what families are going through and their need for retribution? Oh yeah, like, you know, like, dealing with grief is one thing, you know, you're always going to live with it, and it's awful, like, you know, but then on top of it you have court cases, and the only bit of solace that you can find is that the man that killed my brother would do his time for killing Joe, but he didn't, you know, and it just gives you no faith in the justice system, because, you know, the guards worked so hard on all the cases, and, you know, it was just up to the justice system, and they failed us, you know, and that's why we're just really trying to change this law, and, like, yeah, it needs to be changed to hold people to accountability in their actions, you know. It's something that you obviously as a family want to appeal. Have you got any indication as to whether the DPP is open to doing that? Yeah, well, so we've had we've let it know that we want the appeal, but we're just waiting now back to see if the DPP will appeal it, and hopefully they will, because, you know, my brother deserves justice. Yeah. Of course, yourself and your family are still fighting for that justice. There was a vigil at UL yesterday. How was that, and what was the level of support like for you and your family? Yeah, like, there were so many people, and like, University of Limerick has been so good to us as a family, and, you know, like, people are outraged as much as us, you know, with this sentence, you know, and they're holding another one in Limerick City tomorrow at 2:30, and in Mount Strath, where we're from, you know, they're holding one on Sunday at 1, you know, like, the level of support is great, and just to see that people are as outraged as us is a comfort, and we just need to use that and change this, you know. Yeah, and how important for you as a family is it to see that, not only to support yourself, but also, I mean, to keep his memory alive, because at the end of the day, this guy is going to walk out of prison in 8 years, but Joe is gone. Yeah, like, Joe, like, there's been so many writing competitions in Joe's name, and, you know, like, it's just a testament to who he was. You know, just at the age of 21, he had made such an impact in the world. Like, he was amazing, you know, and to see, like, we heard so many stories, like, how much of an impact Joe had made in people's lives, whether it was just, you know,
him giving him a smile or chatting and stuff, and you know, like being there for them. And he was just an amazing, amazing person. And you know, he'll always be missed in our family, and he'll always be missed by everyone else because he had so many friends. And yeah, it was just it's lovely to see that our community and people are feeling this as well, you know, and are outraged with us.
Yeah, I suppose after this happened, you had the court case to cling on to, and now the campaign. But I suppose take all that aside, but you're missing your brother. How are yourself and your parents and your siblings coping on a day-to-day basis? Because grief is crippling.
It's awful. Like, you know, Joe is the first person, like, you wake up and you think it has to be a nightmare, but you know, this is our life now. Like, we have to live without my brother. And my mum and my dad, like, they're different people. You know, they're not the same person that they were before. And, you know, you always just think about Joe. And if you see anything like that he would have liked, you just think of texting him and stuff, you know. Sometimes I have to think myself that he's busy and he can't talk to me right now just to get through the day. But yeah.
Yeah, grief just changes people fundamentally.
It does, yeah, you're not the same.
And I suppose that's the message that you want to put out there, the DPP and anyone in the justice system who is listening now. That needs to be heard.
Oh, for sure. Like, this needs to be appealed. Like, my brother deserves justice, you know, and like other victims as well need to get their justice as well. So this is why we need to change that law. And yeah, just find anyone can sign the petition, and we will try and get this law changed, because we need to hold criminals to real accountability, you know.
And the petition, where is it, and where can people access it?
Change.org. If you type in Joe Drennan, it will come up. So yeah, please, if anyone can sign it, yeah, that would be great. And we will try and get this law changed, because no family should have to advocate as much for justice as we have been doing for Joe, you know.
Listen, thank you so much for joining us today. I understand how incredibly difficult it has been for you, so thank you for sharing your story and reminding people what a wonderful person Joe was, and how Joe was, and how he does deserve justice in his end. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.